Hi, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Queering the Chapbook, the first event that I've curated as the festival's LGBTQ2S program coordinator. Thank you for joining us. We have some wonderful authors joining us today in person, and Victoria, who will eventually come up on screen, joining us from Brooklyn. Before I like to start, I like to acknowledge that this festival takes place on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. Thank you for joining us today. Word Vancouver, I'm going to take a moment to thank all these sponsors because there's a lot of them. Word Vancouver would like to take a moment to thank our generous donors and sponsors. We would also like to give a special thank you to SFU and the Writer Studio for this wonderful space and their continued generous support of Word Vancouver. The sponsors we'd like to thank today are the Canada Arts Council, the Canada Book Funds, the Canada Heritage Funds, Canada Periodical Funds, the BC Arts Council, BC Gaming, Creative BC, the City of Vancouver, DBVIA, the Joseph Waska Family Foundation, the Hammer Foundation, the BC and Yukon Book Prizes, Asian Canadian Writers Workshop, CWILL, Pace and Associates, the Crime Writers Association, the Federation of BC Writers, the Surrey Library and Vancouver Public Library, League of Canadian Poets, the Writers Union of Canada, the Vines Festival, and many more. For a full list, please visit our website, wordvancouver.com. And with that, we'll begin with readings, and we'll just proceed that way. We are going to do an audience Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot up your hand at the end. I will relay your question to the panel and those watching on the live stream, and then they'll answer that way. All good? All good? All right. We are going to start with a reading from Kit McKeown. Kit McKeown is a trans-masculine, non-binary poet, playwright, performer, and publisher living on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. They are currently pursuing a Master of Publishing degree at Simon Fraser University. They won the George McWhirter Prize for Poetry in 2020 and were shortlisted for Peach Meg's Gold in Poetry Prize in 2019. Their poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Poetry Magazine, Room, Peach Meg, Poetry is Dead, The Puritan, and Bad Nudes. Their debut chapbook, I Need Not Be Good, was published with Rahila's Ghost in February 2022. Please welcome Kit.
Thank you so much, David. Hi to everyone here in person with us and everyone on the live stream. Thank you for joining us. It's so great to be here, and thank you so much for lovingly suggesting that I go first today, getting over my stage fright and reading these poems in front of other humans. I will leave any, I don't know, kind of like anecdotes to later on since we have a lot to get through today, but I'm going to start with one of the first poems in my collection, which is called Gift of Desperation. I awake on my burning hillside and descend into the women's AA meeting in the boxing gym. I stink of late summer remorse and jellyfish guts. Last night, someone put MDMA in my wine, and as I became horizontal, I watched the sunset a million times in an hour. I texted James, "Are you seeing this?" And he said, "Should I come over?" And it felt good to say nothing. The phantoms project slivers of light onto the punching bags. I want the power to make sense of things. I got drunk on my hillside all summer long. Summer wound my heart up and suspended it in twine. Or was the sun rising a million times? Someone tells me my eyes are clearer, and it feels like floating face up in the ocean. Something whispers in my ear, a phantom. What does it mean to burn one's life down? Is it true what they say, that one becomes anew in the burning? Thank you. You can clap, it's okay. Or snap, or whatever poets do. This next poem is about outbreaks, and it's about last summer or 2 summers ago now, where there was an outbreak of looper moths in Vancouver. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And also the fires were really bad, so everything felt apocalyptic and horrible. Outbreaks. I search for God, but the sun is a penny. Looper moths form halos beneath every street lamp. Summer's ghostly curtains. Check the weather. Haze. I search for God, but the moon is gone. I search for comfort, and the eels come. They cross my meadow every twilight, up to 7 feet in length, traversing mountain napes with open, eager mouths. The fires heave them from the rivers. Now they curve themselves across the precipice of life towards black oceans, haunted yellow eyes. Looper moths become a gentle cloud. I become an eel, then rethink it. I cough, reveal a wet moth, some gray little heart. It's all hazy now. Pale as sun-bleached wood, I go forth. In a slant of moonlight, I search for comfort. The neon 24-hour fried chicken sign gleams behind the pines. I crawl in the moss. It is easy to find God. She is a cluster of eels beneath my palms. I ask of her, am I doing any of this life right? And she, softly, with her many mouths, says nothing. Thank you. I'll do a queer poem since this is a queer panel. This one's called Transpoetics. I plant strawberries because I do not know what else there is to do with my body. I am tired of my body, but it beckons like the retired racehorse you ignore, which is to say my dream body is Seabiscuit, blue mountains, breakdancing, a little white fang. I used to dream of a man with giant hands and deep voice who would carry me to bed when I couldn't make it. It is too late to turn back now. She whispers boyfriend to me, and my heart is a ringing bell. My dream body is a lemniscate made of ribbons, not unlike the miracle that is testosterone, which may not work for me because I fear second puberty, which is to say I fear being unlovable almost as much as I fear daily needles. Nonetheless, my dream body is a God only knows. I watch the befores and afters travel by, a prideful marching band. I observe because I never learned how. I observe from my dream body, ungendered lovescape, plentiful, green-eyed, imminent. I've got 3 more. Do you think that's okay? Alrighty. This one is called Shame is a White Horse, and you can see that the title has something to do with the cover. And I will mention that the video game that's repeatedly mentioned in this poem is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is the greatest video game of all time. Okay, here we go. Shame is a white horse. In the video game you love, you are a cowboy. You find her by the frozen lake on the mountain. It takes 2 nights to catch her. You kill wolves, chug cans of beans, crouch by campfires, breathe death. When you finally leak to her back, her winter coat glitches and flares out like great blue cowboy wings. With a scream, she storms across the valley for her lonely glacial life, and you press X to calm, press X to calm, press X to calm. You toss your saddle over her. She's beautiful and terrifying and the only one you could ever want, your quick, black-eyed ghoul. You press the buttons that name her, make her your own. Gender these days is a virtuous cowboy who makes no eye contact and whispers bewildering sweetness in your ear. Last week, you ran into a woman in a nightclub. She said, do you remember me from that night in Montreal? Your hands on the floor of the metro station, drunk and weeping because that's what life used to be, blackouts and dirt. Tangle of nothing, ladder of fungus, soft pink grain labia hands prism. She is beautiful and her ears, oh. You press upstick to whistle for her and she circles you like a silent hunger. You had drunk sex with a stranger in the cemetery. You laced fingers with hers, or was it God's, or was it her silver mane? The stars blurred across the night. There is nothing wrong with death underneath and wind in the trees. I would give anything to be loved in this body. Imagine your shame as a pool of ink. Imagine your shame as the raven tapping across your roof. Imagine your shame as little plastic devil horns on your head. You, the cowboy, press X to brush her, and suddenly she shines like a great wet eye. There is no way to avoid it, but your cowboy contracts tuberculosis. It is the climax of the story in the video game you love. You flee your cowboy gang turned mad with greed. She thunders up the mountainside and all you hear is her breath. It is the climax of the story. There should be a forest fire. Instead, there is a mess of pixelated bluebells. And then she is shot in the chest under an indigo sky with jagged clouds. There is no way to avoid it. You press pause to check the walkthrough. There is no way to avoid it. And still, you press X to revive, press X to revive, press X to revive. You write grief across the walls. Forgive the chewing of your hair, the sham of femininity, the cave wherein you ruin yourself. Forgive the nothingness and its offering of nothing. You play video games to live a different life. Close your cowboy eyes. Forgive yourself the mountains, the wolves. You, yes, you. Curl yourself around her head. Whisper thank you. There is heat lightning far away, cradling the meadow and also you. Your cowboy never used to stay still long enough for darkness, cool and beckoning, but now the heat and the night lay you flat. Distant thunderstorms crack open across the hills. For the first time, it is allowed to happen. At the edge of the trees, there is another white horse. The ghost waits for your saddle. This world exists for you, just for you. Thank you. One more. Okay. Oh, yeah, sure. We've had a request. Which poem is that? Is it this one? The more I write. Sorry, I've had a request for a specific line, and I'm forgetting the poem that line is from. Title one? Yeah, okay. This poem's called I Need Not Be Good. It's the title of the collection. The universe asks me to unbecome. I need not wring sorrow from my body. My brother writes me a letter from rehab in the desert. He writes that a camp dog got bit by a rattlesnake. We used to climb trees so high that our legs shook. When he left, the trees turned to shadows and life unbecame. Just yesterday, I wrote a reminder on my fridge to jump into the ocean with Kyla on Sunday. My pen dried after jump in, and now jump in menaces me all over my apartment. Jump in dinner, jump in gossip girl. My brother sold our Xbox to heroin and left through a door into the mountains. Once, someone I was in love with had written take everything on her front door, and so I did too. On my bedroom door, on my mirror, take everything. I bound my breasts for the first time. I ate a bagel. I took what I could, and I need not be good to listen to Patsy Cline on the porch in July. To listen to the wind on the black water. My brother builds a fire with sticks and rocks somewhere that is not here. I accept such longings, and with them the great mystery that is survival. The door into the mountains opens, and my thirsty mouth fills with snow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kit. Wonderful reading. My first question for you was, your poems deal with kind of an autobiographical kind of sense to them. There's one line in your poem, which I'm sorry, it was the wrong poem. It was the poem called "A Deer Wanders into St. Joseph's Church," right? Church. There's a line in that poem where you write, the more I write, the less I would like to hold on to. And I think that really resonated with this kind of idea. I find that readers tend to consider poetry as more biographical than any other genre. And I was kind of wondering how, if you write with that conception or that idea in your mind, and how that kind of guides expressing yourself on the page.
Thank you. That's such a great question. Yeah, I think if you read any of my work or this book at all, I find in a lot of creative writing workshops, there's a lot of emphasis at the beginning as like a guideline for the class that don't believe that the that the I in a poem is the writer. But in my case, you have my permission to just be like, oh yeah, that's Kit. Kit is telling all in their poems. And that's super important to me because I think I learned really young that writing was one of the only ways I could really express what was going on, and actually put it somewhere in the universe and let it sit and be apart from me, especially growing up as a queer kid who was closeted or out and not having a great time, and dealing with things that felt really complicated and too dangerous to bring to other people. Writing was very much my way of getting it out there and addressing it, and dealing with it. And I think that writing as therapy is not the only therapy there is, and not always recommended. But for me, this poem collection was very, it was very much, I have some shit in here that I need to put out there. So when I write, the more I write, the less I would like to hold on. It's that I'm holding on to too much, and I'm ready to put it down, put it somewhere else. And so this collection is really for anyone who feels that way, who's got a lot of stuff and needs to put it down. And confessional poetry really is the way to do that. So
That's beautiful. No, that really resonates with me also as a queer writer, because like it's like when the act of putting it on the page, kind of it in a way like it distance yourself from it a little bit, and it's kind of a part of yourself, so it feels less heavy. Like you said. Thank you. Our next reader is Catherine Lewis. Catherine Lewis is a bisexual Chinese Canadian writer and poet. Her debut poetry chapbook, Zipless, was published by 845 Press in 2021 and has entered its third printing. A recent performer at the Versus Festival of Words, Catherine was shortlisted for Pulp Literature's 2022 Magpie Award for Poetry. Her work is published or forthcoming in the Humber Literary Review and the Fiddlehead, where she was finalist for the 2021 Creative Nonfiction Contests. A graduate of SFU's Writer Studio, she is a 2021 alumnus at the Banff Center. She was born in Hong Kong and raised in Canada. Catherine lives in Vancouver on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Catch her on Instagram and Twitter at cat_writes_604 or catherinewriter.com. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi, is Mike live? Hi, everyone. First off, I want to thank everyone attending in person today for coming out. It's great to see all these faces here. I also want to thank everyone for checking out our live stream on YouTube. Very exciting to be part of a live streamed event. I'm so thrilled to read Word Vancouver for the first time. I've been in the audience chairs at Word Vancouver for many, many years, so this is a really big, special moment for me. And David, I'm a huge fan of your work, so I'm so honored that you've asked me to take part today. This is actually my first time at an in-person queer reading, so this is extra special for me. As for poems from Zipless, I have 2 poems for you today. My first poem is titled Terminological Quibbles. So you've had girlfriends then, she asks, Spanish red wine in hand. I don't think that's the word I would use, I reply, my bare calves tucked under short skirt, politely sipping the same red on her roommate's cream brocade couch. I've had law first dates, nothing that ever reached the level of a girlfriend. She claims me the rest of the night with experienced lips and hands, pouting as I leave for my cubicle the next morning. I'm too ashamed to admit no other woman has tried to kiss me. Online dating's stream of micro rejections filters you out before after pour over coffee. I swipe my card for us both before a waitress's card machine crosses the table. What, did you just pay for me? She exclaims. Thank you so much. I'll get it next time. And I'm surprised that there really is a next date, that when we're out, we plan to meet again. Like you, I'm up for anything, I say. She corrects me. I'm not up for anything. I'm up for love. I remain silent, stare down at her in bed, silence her with a kiss. This is the only time we speak of love in any tense but her past. Not once does talk spring from our lips about whether she's my girlfriend. At support group for late blooming sapphics, I try out the term girlfriend. Cringe and giggle when I hear it falter off my lips. I don't know what to call her when people ask how things are going with this girl I'm seeing, who asked me to come visit her back east during our farewell kiss at Denman and Davie. Last weekend at Dance Studio's party, I spy a pair of ladies kissing, still of note outside queer women's spaces. I make conversation with the girl I don't know. Are you with our studio too? I ask. No, I'm dating Tara. Yes, of course. Have you tried our dance classes yet? No, I just moved here from back east. That's where my ex-girlfriend moved back to, I tell her. Only time I've let this phrase slip past my lips. Ex-girlfriend, the verbal marker that separates me from straight girls who use girlfriend for platonic BFFs. An accidental verbal affront to women who fuck when our romantic relationships are mistaken for just friends. How to casually mention your unexpected orientation. According to Google, just say, my ex-girlfriend. Shorthand that I'm one of us. Each day of silence stretches us from being long distance. Me secretly looking up airfare, to her being my ex-girlfriend who moved away and never got in touch again. Thank you. My second poem, and my second and final poem, David specifically requested for today. This one is called Discrepancies. Delicate Asian features. Young, refined, pretty in her profile pictures. I swipe right. We match. I'm delighted. Some years younger than me. It's all fine. Just some light chat online. She's very complimentary about my profile pictures. Messages me to say, you look hot. You're very beautiful. I'm flattered, wait 12 hours, then reply with flirty banter. We message about work. I ask her how she finds the weather, complain about the rain. What else would I message her about in Vancouver? I am prompt, no need to delay. I don't believe in online messaging ad infinitum. A few days later, I message over, hey, would you like to grab sushi sometime? Isn't this too soon? She sounds frantic in her rapid fire replies. Do you trust me? What if I'm a guy or trans? Would you still be open to meeting me if I were a guy? I reread her profile. Woman, gay, in her 30s. Unless she selected these demographic options by accident? I message back. When you meet me for coffee, I look just like my photos, but I'm only open to meeting women, cis or trans, at this time. Silence. Are you a woman? I finally ask. No, the one-word reply. First time anyone I've messaged has ever admitted their profile was fake. It never occurred to me catfishing was real. Normally, men just fudge minor discrepancies in height, weight, hair, or age. Weeks later, inbox pings me again, multiple misspelled paragraphs. But I have no desire to read this creepy sexual content from the same account. No updates to witty descriptions, merely minor user name modifications, different demographic selections, swapped out photo, face blurred slightly, of a bearded gentleman. Why suggest a coffee date so soon? Maybe a sushi meal. Never in my neighborhood. It's just to make sure that you're real. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So wonderful. The question I have for you was, your poems deal with a lot of they're inspired by interactions had online, and I feel like I was drawn to that because I was kind of writing in that area as well. And I'm wondering how does expressing queer identity in your chapbook, how is it expressing it after being kind of experiencing it, how your identity is perceived online, and how that comes to translate onto page?
This is intriguing because this
Yeah.
is a question for which I have not prepared.
Sorry. Yeah, switching up a little
Let's see,
bit.
expressing queer identities online versus on the page. With queer identity online, I make it very clear, late blooming queer, I'm very specific about my identities online. There's no coming out as an Asian woman. Anyone who sees my photo knows I'm Asian. I do make sure to put down bi in my profile, and it is interesting. I also do put down late blooming queer. That's a big part of this narrative, being a late bloomer, and so people know that I'm at a different life stage than someone who might be on the on the dating scene at my age. So
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. Next reader is Victoria, who will be joining us from Brooklyn, New York. I believe she will be queued up on the screen, or they will be. There they are. Hey, Victoria.
Hello.
All right. I'll start off by reading your bio, and then we'll jump right in.
Okay.
All right. Victoria Mbabazi's work can be found in several literary magazines, including Rejection Letters, Manola Review, and No Contact Mag. Their chapbook is available with Anstruther Press, and their double chapbook, Flip, is available with Knife for Books. They're currently living in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you for joining us, Victoria.
Hi, it's so nice to be on the panel with all of you. Kit, I really love the musicality of your reading, and Catherine, I love the narrative nature of yours. It's been really fun so far. But I'll just start. I'm going to be reading from Flip. I'll just read 3 poems from each. So this is The Creation of Eve. Ask Eve how she became a monster, and she will say Adam gave her permission. He gave her a body with legs to the chin, a god complex, a breath of life with no regard for it. He said the worst thing that could ever happen to me is a demon with a heart shaped like mine, who look good in Louboutins and lingerie. He said when I imagine hell, I get turned on. I just want love as her belonging to me. And when she says no, she's a dyke. And yes, that means she'll never love him. She says, I'm sorry. I was not meant to brave the storm. I was not meant to endure rough sex and obedient conversation. The manic pixie is no longer girl enough. She says, I may ride the current straight into Adam's throat. And if he dies when I go through him, that's not up to me. Okay, this is David's pick poem. And this one is The Karen. The Karen is a white supremacist. She voted for Obama in 2008. Oprah is her favorite talk show host. She says Beyonce is a spirit animal. She says Kamala is the moment. She tells her daughter her black friend can come over, but that she can't go over to hers. Poverty is contagious, but the blacks aren't looking for the antidote. They don't have Michelle Obama's autobiography like she does. She clutches her purse when she sees a type of black person, but not all black people. She believes in marriage equality. All her gay friends match her purses. All her black friends are her best therapists. She is drowning. Her legs over the side of the tub, her head next to the tap, waiting for the maid to unplug the drain. Bullseye. I am an oil painting hung in the center of the room, dressed in silk, smelling like palm trees, honeydew lips, waiting for presentation, lights shut off so I don't fade sans audience. Though the stars chip away at me if the curtains are left open, I just hope I catch you at the right time, eyes steady and focused. I hope I catch you, wanting me whatever way you like, the way I'd like you to want me. And this poem is Forever as a Slow Dance. I'll love someone who wants to dance with me in any room, in any place, in our kitchen, right before dinner, or when there is nothing but Coke in the fridge. Maybe I never gave anyone the chance to want to, but I used to think love was a girl who had a giant pantry in her house. I never had any snacks in mine. So I ended up thinking love was just abundance and something I'm lacking. I thought forever was a reflection of once, myself in the body of a person I wouldn't mind fucking. But then I considered love as more, as saying I'm sorry, because union is saying I feel instead of I need. It is two people promising stability. Vows as infographics, but I had no desire to fall in love with good communication. Love became dancing, taking me by the hand because I want to be taken. Love is not absence. It is would you like to, followed by no, I'd love to. This one is Stevie Nicks is just right about everything. I need to stop crying at landslide. I am too black to be subverting white woman cliches. The car window is too dirty to cry against. And yet I continue to. If I'm going to be a girl boss, I have to try harder to sound less soft when I tell him I don't want him, that it's all fine and that I just want him happy. I have to save crying for the bathroom and stop doing it on the side of the bed he is not sleeping on. If I can devour my feelings in a shoe haul, then why do stilettos feel like a tightrope? I am sick of my pride. Am I not meant to swallow anything other than wine and cum? I can't be powerful in the way a dehumanized Black Mary Sue is. I can't pretend I'm above being heartbroken. Olivia Pope, please forgive me, but I want ice cream and for him to love me and to be called baby on purpose. I want an airport chase, even if it ends with the plane crashing. I want whatever happened for this to happen in a way that leads to an aching confession, one that says, the following program will air every Sunday at 2 p.m. for at least 5 years on the W Network and 10 on Star Channel. It contains angst, delusion, and subjective happy endings. Viewer discretion is advised. And for him to watch the ending with me. So this one, the last one is called Over Easy. There is a chance I won't love you tomorrow. I say this hoping the night sky will continue to border us, but I also know a place we could get married, so I could put my heart in your hands, promising the blood won't get all over your dress, and I won't love you tomorrow, though the sky has one star in it, but usually it has no stars in it. Usually it's covered in clouds or smoke and shooting planes or whatever B.O.B. said, but you won't know me tomorrow. And right now, your eyes are the softest they've ever been, colored like beer glass, framed in tear stains wide, anticipating our relief. Or we could be forever for a moment. We could make promises, just call them fever dreams in the morning, over eggs and burnt coffee. Then when the hangover sets in, I'll notice the ring on my finger and swallow it. So you could be lost if you'd like, and I can belong to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm so happy that we got to include you in the panel because I've been a fan of your work for a very long time. And it's so nice to hear you read. As you guys all heard, Victoria's poetry is very sharp and it makes you crack that smile when you read it. My question for you was, I love that your poetry is so sharp and it speaks volumes to this kind of trope that as marginalized writers, we have this kind of sometimes expectation where we need to kind of poeticize our pain or trauma to be readable to readers. And my question was, how do you approach your writing with kind of this knowledge in mind already?
I think that I thought a lot about that with my first chapbook, like the expectations of writers, and how it can be hard to know what writers want, what readers want from writers of color, but then or queer writers in general. And then but for me, when I approach writing, I just kind of write what I'm thinking about, and I just try to think of it that way because I can't really write about just thinking of what others want from me. So that's how I approach it.
That is a lovely and perfect answer, and I really think that's how it should be done. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll check back with you later after we hear from Patrick, our last reader. Patrick Grace is a writer and teacher from Vancouver, where he works as the managing editor of Plenitude magazine, which you all should check out, by the way. His poems appear in recent issues of Event, CV2, and The Puritan, and are forthcoming in Pinhole Poetry, Arc Poetry Magazine, The Malahat Review, and Best Canadian Poetry. His first chapbook, Dastardly, was published late last year with Anstruther Press. Please welcome Patrick.
Thanks, David. Does that work? Yeah. Thank you, David, and thanks everyone for being here. It's nice to see new and familiar faces and to everybody on the live stream. I'm super excited for my first chapbook. I've never had a book published before, so this meant a lot. And it was really an honor also to work with Jim Johnstone at Anstruther Press, who helped put this together. So the first poem that I'm going to read is called Wanton. I'm left-handed, so I don't quite know if I should hold this. I'm going to do it this way. Admit it. The night trailed you and you turned wanton. This wanting I feel is your wanting. You lit a flame. You scolded my fears. I'm sorry I spoke at first. I'm sorry. That must be it, that I asked for it. Some things lost, others exceeded. You kick off your shoes and step inside, your body taken for the night. What name did you offer? A daze of lightning, a bag of colored shells? I hold my own light, a splash of honeycomb. Now it's formed a cage. Another taillight in the glass city anchors in an alley. Guttural love, I love your guttural love. The days I choke and wait. This next poem is called It's Like That, Is It? I come for the free coffee, but stay for the men committed to their wives. It's simple, unsinging the ring until she's pregnant with his kid. I grew my hair to the shoulder bone, but not my breasts. I hacked off nothing. I disintegrated in the mirror. The steam pulled back to reveal my never self, my never person. Pour me another. I think I'm just under the limit to hold lightning in my veins. The loneliest homos are the ones I sing awake when the rain asks if they'll stay until late morning. I'd like to tell him this is the last time, turning the same corner of what could be versus what is. This next poem that I'm going to read, it's about being in a public place at a concert down in the States some years ago. And I was just hoping to capture the idea that you can be surrounded by hundreds of people. You can have this booming music in front of you. You can have security guards around you at the stage, but there can be a presence, somebody very close to you who's actually the biggest threat where you are. It's called Oyster. I never got over the enormous oyster shell built as a backdrop to the amphitheater that summer. The heat, the dizzying details of it, some nature-made Art Deco gag pieced together with concave sections of colored glass. Its purpose differs based on who you ask. A new color every night, a lawsuit after years of noise complaints, a reflective sound wall. I remember the music and echoes, the way oyster shells reflect the ocean in small, lustrous pools. I could hear everything beyond the threats you whispered, each voice a concave sonic boom. A woman is pregnant to her boss. A couple finalizes new house blueprints. A teenager tries an upper for the first time. Everyone was stoned. I couldn't blame them. The ground rising in techno waves, the tilt of your body heady and high. The body sang in perfect pitch. The words were familiar, but I'd never heard this one before, so instead I hummed along, out of tune, the sounds in my throat audible only to myself. The last poem that I'm going to read, it's about somebody that I went to elementary school with a long time ago. And it's kind of the way that I'm hoping my writing will go these days, writing more about my childhood and the streets that I used to go in Vancouver and the house that I used to live in. This one's called Nick the Dick. As a kid, I could be witty and tragic all at once, chasing the boys in the lower field and screaming, Nick the Dick, to the one I love most. As in, planting his fist under my ribs. As in, this is what I am, a boy who cries after a hug. You better let him go. He feels too much. Architect of my body, I am no longer there. No boy ever is. I imagined his kisses soft, fists raining down after a soccer match. fuck, I could run back then. So could he. The best intentions run through me. Our gym teacher called us bellicose, as in, I taunted and Nick came to pin me down, that childish expression of rancor stinging me to the ground. I begged for the repetition. I kept his face close to mine, as in, his class photo swiped and squirreled under my foam mattress, revisiting the fold night after night like a bad dream. My breath broke splendidly. I slept on my hands. Years later, I swapped stillness for internet streams. I fall in love with moving pictures. Nick is married now, a beautiful Greek wedding, crowns of orange blossoms looping on his Instagram profile. My friend request is still pending. Please follow me back. What makes you think you didn't like to chase? I begged for the repetition, held on to what I could. My guidance counselor said I had room to improve, potential. He called me bright. I am anything but a light, diving out of myself and laddering into the sky. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your, I love about your poetry. It's so visceral and very, our favorite word to use in poetry, very raw. The question I had for you was, as I was reading Dastardly, and as you will see too when you pick up the chapbook, there's this very reflective quality about the poems, as if the narrators are diving into memories that aren't quite vivid or like remembered correctly, but they're trying to do their best to kind of remember them. So that being said, I want to ask you, how does the act of reflection inform your writing process and your poetry pertaining to this chapbook in specific?
So I think for me, I'm quite a deep thinker. I spend a lot of time thinking about people that I've known or places that I've been. So for me, this chapbook was just trying to put together sort of pieces of my life. I kind of like to use the analogy of a tree that has no bark. It's just the tree flesh, and you might feel some little grooves on it, but there's going to be some really big digs in the tree, and that's kind of where your fingers are going to go, and you're going to feel these deep grooves. And I think for me with my poetry, that's really what I'm thinking about these things in my life, and how can I put them in something like this? I dream a lot. I have very vivid dreams most nights, and it's nice because when I'm dreaming and I'm remembering my childhood, or I'm remembering people that I've known, I kind of stop being a victim to some of this stuff, and I start being more a witness. Because especially in this chapbook with, things that I dealt with an ex-partner, a lot of the mind games and the gaslighting, my dreams, I'm just kind of up here as a narrator, and I'm not fully in it. The anger and the rage it's not in my dreams. It's just me being able to reckon what happened. And I think I do what some writers do. You have these lines that come in your dreams, and you kind of wake up and grab your phone and type it in before you fall back asleep. And I do that all the time. Yeah, so I think the reflective quality, it really comes from a lot of the thinking and going over in my mind day to day, but also in the dreams as well.
That's a beautiful answer. I love it when poets answer so poetically to the questions. But that is a very succinct way to crystallize what the chapbook is. You're reading these poems, and they're kind of like vignettes of dreams almost. It's a very cool experience. Kind of a nice segue into the question that I have for all of you. Victoria as well. Are they still on screen? I think they are. Okay, hi Victoria.
Hi.
Yeah, so this event, Queering the Chapbook, I really wanted to highlight some really cool chapbooks by some really cool people, and they're all here. Chapbooks are a very interesting way to kind of debut into poetry, I think. It's very exciting. And the design and tradition of chapbooks in general, it's smaller, obviously, than a full-length collection, so you have a very limited amount of space. So my question to everybody at the panel today is, what is what are some aspects of queerness that you wanted to convey in such a short amount of space to readers being first introduced to your work as debut poets? If anybody wants to jump in, Victoria, if you want to jump in, just go ahead and yeah.
Okay. I think like when I think of my first chapbook, specifically, I just wanted to talk about like different kinds of poems. So it was easy that way because it was like there was like just one gay poem. And then but like with a flip I had more like I had more space. So I feel like and I love poems and I'm queer. So it was just like I'm gay and I'm writing poems. So I didn't really think about like how to put space because it was easy because that's my life.
For me, it was this. I didn't read a lot of my super gay poems, I'm realizing. If you pick up the chapbook, I promise there's more queer content. It's not all sad me poems, but just queer. Sometimes sad queer content is just all we need. Anyway, but for me, this is also my first like collection of poetry, and the urgency behind it was really around, as you may have picked up, themes around recovery from addiction and alcoholism and family trauma. And all of that was kind of linked into queerness for me because I only came out as trans when I recovered from alcoholism. So it's all kind of with some like fun, like, you know, abusive relationship stuff, like all the fun things that queer poets write about. So for me, it was kind of like the most urgent poems made it in here. And it was the stuff, like I said earlier, like the most honest, urgent, like stuff that I really needed to just get out of myself so I can write about happier stuff later. That was the impetus for these for me.
As for me, I really wanted to talk folks through the realities of navigating queer world as a late blooming queer, first dates, breakups, ghosting, being alone on the dance floor, basically the reality of dating as a late blooming queer woman who looks around midlife and says, wait, I just got here. I really gotta get up to speed. Yeah. So yeah, getting up to speed, getting caught up, being behind. I also want to highlight the intersectionality of doing all this as a Chinese Canadian woman in predominantly white spaces. I do write about attending pride events in Chinatown, targeted queer Asian folks or Asians, the term, if you haven't heard before. And some of my poems certainly do touch upon my identity of doing all this as someone writing, dating, and simultaneously being bound to the cultural heritage that I was born into. And it's a lot. It can be intriguing, complicated, but I feel extraordinarily lucky to have the opportunity to do it.
So for me, I guess just building off of that, especially the idea of late bloomer, not as a gay man, but as somebody who, you know, put out their first work kind of in their mid 30s, which I don't know, for me as writers, that seems kind of late, but that's just how it happened to be. So for me with this collection, I was, you know, just kind of what Kit was saying as well about sexuality, but I thought, you know, do I want these poems to all just be gay poems? Is that what I want my identity to be? And just in my regular life, you know, is that just because I'm gay, is that what I want people to see in me? Is just my sexuality? So parts of this, you know, there's a poem about my mother's illness in here. There's stuff about my childhood, you know, but I wanted to have some things about sexuality as well. So for me, it was just kind of showcasing my life as trying to be independent from my sexuality, but just trying to have it well-rounded as well.
Those are all beautiful answers. And you kind of remind me, I hope everyone here too, like the chapbook, because it's small, it's modest in size, but there's a lot you can get into a chapbook, and the breadth of what can be covered in there is quite impressive to what you guys have done. And also, there's no such thing as late blooming. You're welcome to the party. You're fine. But no, I understand. And it's beautiful that you guys got to showcase that in your chapbooks. I think we have time for maybe one more question. And if the audience has questions, feel free to, just speak up at the end there. So I wanted to know, after publishing your chapbooks and putting yourself on these pages. What aspect of queerness or your queerness have you learned, and how can that be like, and how that can be written on the page, basically, after your experience of publishing your first collection?
I'll try to answer that. I think one thing, I don't know if I discovered anything new about queerness. Actually I did. I think it was that there's a possibility of change. I remember when I wrote a lot of these, because these have been written over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I remember feeling in the moment of writing this down that things would never change. Like, this is the way my life is. This thing feels hard. That thing feels impossible. This relationship is broken. And now as I like read from this book today, now that it's like finished out in the world and I get to talk about it, I'm struck by how I'm like, oh, look at younger Kit, like, you know, and like, look at little Kit dealing with their stuff. And yeah, a lot of these still ring really true. It's very raw, as you say. And also it's really interesting to be able to have this as a relic of a former time when things felt really hard. And it's kind of like an it gets better moment, but like with myself and my poetry. I hate it gets better, but you know what I mean. But it's lovely to be able to look back and see how things have shifted over time, and that these poems get to be a bit of a time capsule to that. Yeah.
As for me, it's been an intriguing experience. The fact is, I hadn't published very much work at the time that this chapbook was accepted, and none of my previous publications were queer. So I did have some struggles about how open to be about my sexuality. Once this manuscript was accepted by my publisher, I deliberated for a few days before getting back to them and really coming to terms with accepting being out there as a queer writer who submitted a super queer work. I only after it was accepted did I count up and say, of 11 of those poems, 9 of them have queer content. This is undeniably super gay, and you're gonna have to be out in a way that you were not out before. And that's a pep talk I gave myself. In the end, the publication experience has been joyous because the fact is, it is my emergence into queer community. I felt very welcomed into the community of queer writers. So it's been wonderful to be welcomed, and everyone's writing about sex and relationships. I'm gonna fit in just fine right here. Thank you. I've been so grateful to be welcomed.
I like the idea of having it being kind of what Kit said, that this is like a younger me, or this is almost a me that I can, you know, it's here, I can close it and I can move on to writing about different things. Because probably for the last 2-3 years, I just kind of had the tires going in the same hole, but I got a lot of content out of it, which was nice. But now I can be more experimental in my writing, and I can be writing about, you know, me and my sister as kids and the house we grew up in, and kind of like that last poem I read, sort of people that I knew when I was younger who might still kind of be floating around in my mind. So
Definitely. Victoria, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I was thinking about this because when I wrote, so the like with Flip, I had She Doesn't Come Back, where I talk mostly about like where there's a lot of movie tropes, and some of the poems, like I thought about like female like tropes, like, you know, like women tropes, and how like I'd like the death of my like perception of my womanhood, or like that it exists at all. So I think like through writing that, like I was trying to find like that relation, like just like I was thinking more about my gender in some of the poems, and like how I relate to people in that way. So that's something I discovered.
Beautiful. Thank you. Does anybody from the audience have a question? We have time for probably one, if anybody. No? Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely talking about chapbooks and queer writing with everybody here. Books are for sale at the Iron Dogs table just outside under the tech gallery. It's basically by those 3 big windows there. All of our authors have their chapbooks for sale themselves. They'll be out by the windows there at the signing table. You can get your chapbooks, get them signed. And Victoria's chapbook, you'll have to order from knifeworkbook.com and anstrutherpress.com. If that's okay, Victoria? Awesome.
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Thank you so much again for joining us, you guys. You've been a wonderful audience. And I hope you join the rest of the festival.